All right, you're interested in Native American spirituality, more specifically the teachings of Don Juan Matus and some other figures. We've got excerpts from a book by Vladimir Antonov, a biologist with a PhD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and his book is actually translated from Russian.
Okay.
So it kind of adds this whole other layer of cross-cultural exploration, wouldn't you say?
It definitely does. It's like a double deep dive then into the spiritual tradition, ND, how it's perceived through this other lens.
So think of this as your crash course
Mm-hmm.
on this particular branch of Native American spirituality.
Okay.
We'll unpack some key concepts, explore some of the methods. We'll even touch on some of the ethical dilemmas it presents.
Sounds good.
All that good stuff.
Where should we begin?
Well, I think the best place to start is with a person who really introduced these teachings to the world, Don Juan Matus.
Okay.
And his teachings were chronicled by Carlos Castaneda, who met Don Juan while researching psychotropic plants
Right.
used by Mexican Indians.
Uh-huh.
Castaneda was an anthropology student.
Oh, wow.
So talk about being thrown in the deep end.
Seriously? Yeah, what a fish out of water story. Castaneda encountered things that, like, completely challenged his worldview, and Don Juan's teachings weren't always straightforward either.
Totally. I mean, even Don Juan himself went through a lot of evolution in his spiritual journey.
Yeah.
He made mistakes early on.
Right.
And his understanding shifted over time.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we're focusing on here is like his ultimate understanding.
Sure.
And a core part of that is the concept of the tonal and the Nagual. Can you unpack that a little bit?
The tonal is essentially the everyday world, everything we perceive with our senses.
Right.
It's the physical, material realm. The Nagual, on the other hand, is the non-material world, a realm beyond our normal senses. So Don Juan taught that you could access the Nagual through different kinds of attention, like what we might call clairvoyance or heightened awareness.
So it's like there's this whole other dimension layered over our reality.
Yeah.
And we need to develop specific skills to even perceive it.
Yeah. And this is where the concept of the hunter comes in. A spiritual hunter, in Don Juan's terms, is someone who seeks knowledge and walks a path of the heart.
Okay.
It's really about caring for the earth and all beings, not about harming.
Right.
There's a story where Don Juan asked Castaneda to kill a rabbit,
Oh, wow.
and he refused.
Really?
Yeah, he didn't want to cause harm, and it really highlighted this ethical dimension of the hunter's path.
I'm curious, how does that relate to the idea of the warrior, which I know is another important concept in Don Juan's teachings?
The warrior for Don Juan is someone who stalks the power or God, but it's not about aggression. It's more about this relentless pursuit of spiritual understanding. He used everyday encounters as teaching moments. For example, he once used a snail crossing the road to teach Castaneda about, like, understanding our place in the web of life.
So it's about recognizing the interconnectedness of everything.
Exactly.
And recognizing that even the smallest things can hold profound lessons. Now, Don Juan's school wasn't for just anyone. Only those with developed chakras were accepted.
Oh.
Now, can you explain what that means for our listener who may not be familiar with that term?
Chakras are energy centers in the body.
Okay.
So developed chakras means that these people were already quite advanced in their spiritual development.
Oh.
Even before meeting Don Juan, they could handle intense practices right away.
So what kind of practices did they do?
Well, they worked with something called hara, which is the lower energy center in the body. Don Juan also taught them to divide their perception into two bubbles, the upper bubble for the tonal and the lower for the Nagual.
Interesting.
It was serious stuff.
And they were aiming for some pretty lofty goals, right?
Yeah.
Like they talked about achieving nirvana?
Yes. Both the static and dynamic forms of nirvana. But here's the thing. Don Juan urged Castaneda to move beyond even the bliss of nirvana.
Oh, wow.
He was always pushing for the next level. I mean, their ambition was remarkable.
It almost sounds like they were trying to, like, redefine what's possible for human consciousness.
Absolutely. They explored niroti, which is a state where you use energy waves to travel to other dimensions.
Wow.
They also talked about merging with God power after achieving a state of disappearance in Brahman. And they even discussed the possibility of dematerializing the physical body.
Okay.
Which just, like, boggles the mind.
I think our listener probably needs a moment to digest all that. But before we do, can we bring it back down to earth for a second?
Sure.
What about the specific methods Don Juan used? Is there anything in his teachings that we can actually apply in our own lives?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
One key practice is called recapitulation.
Okay.
It's a form of deep self-reflection.
Okay.
But think of it as repentance on steroids. You
Mhm.
revisit past mistakes, not just to feel bad,
Right.
but to relive them correctly
Okay.
with the right ethical understanding, where
Yeah.
you can reclaim wasted energy.
So it's not just about dwelling on the past. It's about actually learning from it and moving forward.
Right, and it's about dismantling self-importance and self-pity, which can really hold us back. Castaneda and his companion, Lagorda, even worked as servants
Oh.
to shed their egos.
Really?
For Don Juan, it wasn't about your external circumstances,
Interesting.
but the state of your consciousness that mattered on the spiritual path.
Wow. That's a powerful lesson. What else did they practice?
Another important practice is sweeping the tonal.
Uh-huh.
It's about clearing out the clutter, both physical and mental, so you can better perceive the Nagual. Don Juan actually used a sack filled with random items to illustrate this. He showed how attachments prevent us from seeing the bigger picture.
So is this basically Don Juan's version of decluttering?
You could say that,
Yeah.
yeah. It's about simplifying your life and your mind to create space for a deeper awareness.
Fascinating. I'm already starting to feel the need to clean out my closet. But before I get distracted, I know Don Juan also had some profound teachings on remembering death. Can you talk about that a little?
It did. Yeah. And not in a morbid way,
Okay.
but as a way to bring urgency and focus to life.
Uh-huh.
Don Juan's quotes on death are so evocative,
Yeah.
and they really highlight how remembering our mortality can help us prioritize what truly matters.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you constantly remind yourself that your time is limited,
Right.
you're less likely to waste it on trivial things.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a powerful way to cut through the noise
Yeah.
and focus on what's essential.
Okay, so we've got recapitulation,
Mm.
sweeping the tonal,
Right.
remembering death.
Yes.
What else is there?
Another important practice was the mental pause,
Okay.
which is essentially about stopping your inner dialogue. Don Juan taught that to access deeper states, you need a quiet mind. It's essential for meditation and for mastering the Nagual.
So how do you actually achieve a mental pause?
Don Juan used various techniques,
Okay.
including gazing, prolonged suspension,
Ah.
and even psychedelics.
Oh,
Early on,
interesting.
he later moved away from psychedelics.
And Castaneda even warned against them.
Okay.
So proceed with caution there.
Right, of course.
But ultimately, it's about developing a conscious control
Yeah.
over your thoughts.
That's a pretty tall order for someone like me, whose mind races all the time. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here,
Yeah.
but I know there's more to come. What other techniques did Don Juan teach?
Well, Don Juan also worked with something called tyrants.
Tyrants. That sounds intense.
It involved intentionally putting yourself
Okay.
in challenging situations to develop resilience and impeccability, which is essentially about living in alignment with your highest principles.
So like trial by fire.
Yeah, something like that.
But, I mean, wouldn't that be kind of dangerous? I mean, are we talking about like deliberately seeking out conflict or putting yourself in harm's way?
It's a tricky one.
Hmm.
Ethically speaking,
Right.
Don Juan certainly pushed his students to their limits. And it raises questions about, like, how far we should push ourselves on the spiritual path.
And whether it's ever okay to deliberately expose ourselves to potentially harmful situations.
It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
It seems like Don Juan's teachings kind of walk a fine line
Yeah.
between pushing boundaries and respecting limits.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that what worked for Don Juan and his students might not be appropriate for everyone. We all have different paths.
Okay, good point. Now, I know there's this whole other aspect of Don Juan's teachings that we haven't even touched on yet, dreaming. But this isn't about, like, sleeping dreams, right?
Yeah, right. Don Juan used the term dreaming to refer to a type of conscious meditation where you cultivate vivid imagery
Okay.
and explore different states of awareness. It's like lucid dreaming, but you're awake.
Oh, interesting.
He called it dreaming because, well, the experience could be as vivid and surreal as a dream.
So what was the purpose of dreaming?
Through dreaming, Don Juan and his students learned to perform extraordinary feats. They talked about running on walls, climbing energy beams in their out-of-body states, things that like defy our normal understanding of physics. They were exploring the hidden potential of the mind.
Wow, that sounds incredible. And a little bit terrifying, to be honest.
Mhm.
What else did they do?
They also practiced what they called shifting the assemblage point. It involved the teacher energetically influencing the student's consciousness to help them perceive reality in new ways. It was a very advanced technique.
I'm starting to understand why Don Juan was so selective about his students.
Mm.
These practices sound incredibly intense.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else we should know about Don Juan's methods before we move on?
Yes. One more thing.
Okay.
Don Juan worked with something called allies, which were essentially spirits.
Allies.
There were two ways of working with allies: taming them or hunting them.
Taming spirits. That sounds straight out of a fantasy novel.
It does, doesn't it? But both Don Juan and Gennaro, who we'll talk about in a bit, eventually stopped taming allies because they realized it was a dangerous path. As for hunting allies, it was more of a metaphorical exercise to help develop the lower bubble of perception, that part of ourselves that can perceive the Nagual.
Okay, so to recap, Don Juan emphasized these three key arts.
Right.
The art of stalking, the
Yeah.
art of intent, and the art of consciousness.
Right.
Could you break those down for us a bit more?
Of course. The art of stalking is about developing a heightened awareness.
Okay.
It starts with physical stealth, learning to move silently and blend into your surroundings.
Right.
But it eventually evolves into stalking your own vices, becoming aware of your negative patterns,
Okay.
and learning to overcome them. Don Juan had this great quote: "God provides according to our impeccability." It's about aligning your actions with your highest principles.
So it's about self-mastery, in a sense.
Exactly.
The art of intent, on the other hand, is about aligning your will with the supreme goal, or the divine will.
Yeah.
It's about dedicating your life to something bigger than yourself.
Yes.
It's about the totality of a warrior's life.
Exactly.
Right. And the art of consciousness.
That's essentially Buddha yoga, the yoga of developing a higher consciousness. It's about meditation, self-awareness, and cultivating a deeper understanding of your true nature.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get a sense of the overall framework of Don Juan's teachings.
Good.
But he wasn't the only remarkable figure in this tradition, right?
That's right. We have so many more fascinating figures to explore.
Absolutely. Let's meet the next one.
All right. Next up is Eaglesform, a Native American spiritual teacher
Okay.
whose words are imbued with poetic imagery and profound wisdom. He uses the mountain as a powerful metaphor for spiritual strength and resilience,
Okay.
urging his students to be a mountain.
That's a powerful image. You can practically feel the strength and stability of a mountain just thinking about it.
Right.
What does it mean to be a mountain in a spiritual sense?
It's about cultivating an unshakable presence, a sense of inner strength that allows you to weather any storm. Eaglesform talks about how souls are sent into the world of earthly concerns to gain experience and develop their spiritual muscles, and eventually the desire for freedom arises, and they begin to seek something more.
But that freedom isn't just about escaping the material world, is it?
Exactly. Eaglesform describes it as moving from a state of limitation, to a state of boundlessness,
Right.
to the infinity of beingness in the Creator. It's a profound transformation of consciousness.
It sounds like Eaglesform's teachings really resonate with Don Juan's emphasis on the warrior's path
Yes,
and the pursuit of freedom.
they definitely share that thread.
Right.
And Eaglesform's personal journey adds another layer of depth to his teachings. He talks about incarnating as a mestizo,
Okay.
someone of mixed Spanish and Indian heritage,
Right.
and facing rejection from both sides.
It's a poignant reminder that the spiritual path often involves navigating societal barriers and finding your own unique place in the world. It's not always easy,
Right.
but it can lead to incredible growth.
Exactly. And Eaglesform found solace and guidance in the mountains, where he developed a deep respect for nature and the spirit of death, which he later came to understand as the spirit of life.
That's interesting. How did he come to that understanding?
He describes encountering the spirit of life through moments of extreme risk,
Okay.
like climbing cliffs without ropes.
Oh, wow.
He talks about entering a state of deep calm,
Yeah.
where he could perceive everything with incredible clarity. It's like facing death brought him face to face with a higher reality.
It's almost like he had to push himself to the edge
Yeah.
to break through his limitations and experience a deeper truth.
And there's this pivotal moment
Whoop.
where he falls from a precipice
Oh, no.
and experiences the boundless light,
Wow.
the pure joy of beingness. He's caught between life and death,
Intense.
and ultimately returns to his body completely healed and transformed.
Wow. It sounds like a classic near-death experience,
Right.
but with this distinctly Native American flavor.
And he comes back from this experience with a renewed sense of purpose to guide others to the true life, to teach the laws of love.
Okay, so we've explored Eaglesform's teachings,
Yeah.
and now I'm curious to hear more about what Don Juan himself shared directly with Antonov.
Well, in their conversations,
Yeah.
Don Juan emphasized the importance of action
Right.
over dwelling in self-pity. He said a true warrior identifies their flaws and works to eliminate them
Okay.
without getting bogged down by regret or shame.
So it's about taking responsibility for your own growth and focusing on what you can change
Right.
rather than what you can't.
Exactly.
And interestingly, Don Juan also highlights the importance of laughter.
Yes.
But not just any laughter.
Right.
The laugh of the Nagual.
Yes, the laugh of the Nagual.
Okay, I have to ask, what's so special about this kind of laughter?
Don Juan described it as laughing at your own vices, making them burst like soap bubbles. It's about dissolving self-importance and merging with the power.
So it's like using humor as a spiritual tool to detach from the ego.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about not taking ourselves too seriously
Yeah,
and recognizing the absurdity of our egos clinging to its limitations.
that's a brilliant approach.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like Don Juan had a very nuanced understanding of power,
He did.
right?
And he said something really interesting about power.
Yeah?
He said that the power, or God, doesn't belong to anyone,
Okay.
but we can belong to the power.
Oh, wow.
It's a complete reversal of the usual ego-driven desire to control everything.
So it's about surrendering to something greater than yourself.
Yes.
Recognizing that you're part of a larger web of being.
And he stressed that trying to command the power is a trap. It's about aligning your will with the divine will,
Right.
not trying to bend the universe to your own desires.
It seems like that's a common theme in many spiritual traditions, that true power comes from surrender, not domination.
Absolutely.
Oh,
And both Don Juan and Gennaro, his close companion,
Yeah.
emphasized the importance of living a life filled with what they called impeccable love and power. It's not just about understanding these concepts intellectually,
Right.
but about actually embodying them
Right.
in every moment.
It's about walking the talk, living in alignment with your highest values.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they talked about how this kind of life is never boring,
Yeah.
never filled with regret or worry. It's about being fully present, fully engaged,
Right.
and fully aligned with the supreme goal.
That sounds pretty appealing, to be honest. All right, let's meet Gennaro. You mentioned him earlier,
Okay.
and I'm eager to hear more about his teachings.
Gennaro is a fascinating character. He brings this playful energy to the teachings,
Okay.
and he's full of practical wisdom. He describes the laughter of divine teachers as waves of golden light
Wow.
that fill you with joy and bliss.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful image.
It sounds like he was someone who truly embodied that joyful surrender to the power.
He definitely seemed to.
Right.
And Gennaro also talks about the importance of clearing out old stereotypes
Okay.
and being open to new ways of perceiving the world. He calls it the trick of awareness,
Oh, good.
becoming aware of yourself,
Yeah.
not as a body, but as something beyond this physical form.
So it's about transcending our limited self-identification
Yeah.
and tapping into a deeper level of being.
Exactly. But he cautioned that this freedom isn't for everyone. It requires courage, power, and knowledge. And it comes with a responsibility,
Right.
the impeccability of the warrior.
It sounds like he's saying that with great freedom comes great responsibility.
He is. And he also makes this point that at a certain stage, there's no going back to ordinary life. You've crossed a threshold,
Yeah.
and there's only the path forward.
Okay.
It's a complete commitment,
Right.
a dedication to something beyond the mundane.
So it's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not. But for those who are ready, it's a path of incredible liberation
Right, yeah.
and fulfillment.
Okay, well noted.
Uh-huh.
I'll keep that in mind
Ah.
as we continue our exploration. What else did Gennaro teach?
Well, Gennaro talked about how a perfect Nagual
Okay.
has the freedom to move to any world they choose.
Well,
It's about developing omnipresence, the ability to be anywhere and everywhere,
right.
while still remaining rooted in the home of the primordial one, which is their term for the source of all being.
So it's not just about physical travel,
Right.
but about expanding your consciousness
Yeah.
to encompass all of reality.
Exactly. It's about transcending the limitations of time and space.
That's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is.
Right.
And he also shared his own personal experience of overcoming self-importance. He talked about developing strategies to detach from the ego's need for praise or fear of failure. It's about seeing the bigger picture, recognizing that our individual triumphs and setbacks are ultimately insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
It's a humbling perspective, but also a liberating one.
Absolutely.
Right. It frees you from the tyranny of the ego.
It allows you to live with more freedom and less attachment to outcomes.
Okay, Gennaro has definitely given us a lot to ponder.
Mhm.
Who's next on our list of remarkable figures?
Next, we have Silvio Manuel, whose teachings center around the importance of daring,
Okay.
of venturing into the unknown with a fearless heart. He describes his own journey as a sorcerer traveler, exploring new worlds and pushing the boundaries of spiritual experience.
It sounds like he was a true adventurer of the spirit.
He was. But eventually, he too achieved a state of profound calm,
Okay.
a deep understanding of the true goal of the path.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Mhm.
This idea of pushing boundaries, facing challenges,
Yeah.
and ultimately finding a deeper sense of peace and understanding.
You're right.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a common thread running through these teachings.
So what did Silvio Manuel emphasize in his teachings?
He stressed the importance of detachment, not
Yeah.
in a cold or aloof way.
Yeah. But in a way that allows you to move through life with clarity and purpose.
So it's about not getting bogged down by attachments,
Yeah.
but still engaging fully with life.
Yes. It's about finding a balance
Right.
between engagement and non-attachment,
Yeah.
which can be a tricky but ultimately liberating way to live.
I can see how that would be helpful on the spiritual path. Anything else that stood out in Silvio Manuel's teachings?
He also emphasized the importance of companionship on the spiritual path. He said that a warrior weakens without others to fight for, without a sense of shared purpose.
It's a reminder that we're not meant to walk this path alone.
Yeah.
We need each other's support,
Right.
encouragement, and inspiration.
We can learn so much from each other and support each other through the inevitable challenges that arise on this spiritual journey.
And didn't Silvio Manuel also talk about the importance of respecting each other's unique paths?
He did. He invites us to explore the depths of his being, but warns against enticing others to follow us blindly. He said the freedom he found is only for those who truly desire it, who are ready to leave behind the limitations of the ordinary world.
It's a powerful message about authenticity
Mm-hmm.
and honoring our own individual journeys. We can share our experiences and insights, but ultimately each person has to find their own way.
Well said. It's about respecting each other's sovereignty and trusting that everyone is exactly where they need to be on their own path.
Okay, I'm really enjoying meeting all these fascinating figures.
Okay.
Who's next?
Next up is Juanito,
Okay.
a young Indian chief
All right.
from a time before the Spanish conquest.
Interesting.
He led a tribe that was dedicated to exploring the Nagual.
Wow, it sounds like they were a pretty intense spiritual community.
They were. Their whole way of life was
Yeah.
structured around spiritual development. They believed in constantly pushing their limits and striving for excellence.
And what did Juanito himself teach?
He emphasized the importance of remaining true to yourself, regardless of external circumstances. He said, you have to remain that what you decided to be independent of the energies of the surroundings and other influences. It's about developing an inner compass,
Right.
a sense of self that isn't swayed by the winds of change or the opinions of others.
It's a powerful message about integrity and self-reliance.
It is. And Juanito also shared how his tribe mastered the art of invisibility.
Invisibility.
Through total reciprocity with nature. It's about merging with your surroundings,
Yeah.
becoming one with nature.
That sounds incredibly challenging to be able to blend so seamlessly with your environment.
It was. They trained for years to develop this level of mastery. They learned to move with the grace of animals, to see and hear with expanded consciousness, and to communicate across vast distances. It's about tapping into a level of awareness that goes beyond our normal five senses.
It almost sounds like they developed superhuman abilities.
They did achieve extraordinary things.
Yeah.
And they believe that through this deep immersion in nature,
Yeah.
they could attain direct perception of God.
It's a beautiful example of how nature can be a doorway to the divine.
It is. All right, ready to meet the final figure in our deep dive.
Absolutely, bring 'em on.
Our last, but certainly not least, guest is Eagle, a figure who embodies freedom,
Okay.
soaring above limitations and embracing the vastness of the Creator.
Beautiful.
His words are like a call to awaken to our true nature. He says, the eagle knows the freedom. The eagle knows the flight.
I love that. It's so evocative and inspiring.
It is.
You're right.
And he compares the warrior of spirit to an eagle soaring above the world of matter, guided and supported by the power of God.
It's a beautiful image of spiritual liberation.
It is. What else did Eagle teach?
What else did Eagle teach?
He taught about uniting the wings of spirit
Okay.
with the power of the Creator to
Yeah.
glide through the current of eternity bound only by love.
That sounds like a pretty incredible way to experience life.
It does, doesn't it?
Right.
Eagle talked about how the warrior of spirit knows the time of their death
Okay.
and casts off the flesh willingly, continuing to live in the spirit.
It's about transcending the fear of death,
Uh-huh.
recognizing that our true essence is eternal.
Exactly. And he also talked about how the warrior of spirit can achieve even more,
Okay.
turning matter into spirit by igniting the fire from within.
That sounds like some serious alchemy.
It is. It's about the complete transformation of the self, the realization of our divine potential.
Okay, so we have this idea of the warrior of spirit as an eagle,
Yeah,
soaring to incredible heights.
right.
How do we actually cultivate that kind of freedom and power in our own lives?
When Antonov asked Eagle how to teach souls ready for higher initiations,
Yeah.
he replied, God can communicate without words. He speaks to them with his touches. It's about moving beyond intellectual understanding
Yeah.
to direct experience,
Okay.
to a heart-to-heart communion with the divine.
So it's not about reading books or listening to podcasts,
Right.
but about actually having that direct personal experience of the divine.
Exactly. And Eagle shared that he attained divinity not on Earth, but came here as an avatar,
Wow.
a son of God, to serve the evolution of this planet.
So he's saying that we're not alone in our spiritual journey, that there are beings of immense power and wisdom who are here to guide and support us.
Yes.
Wow.
And he described how he taught the American Indians to perceive the world as one whole organism,
Right.
to respect every life,
Yeah.
and to live in harmony with nature.
That's a beautiful vision of a way of life that is deeply connected to the earth and all its creatures.
It is. It's a message that we could all benefit from hearing in today's world.
Absolutely. And he talked about how Indians learn to listen to the world around them, the sun, the stars, the wind, the forest, the rivers, the lakes, the animals. They understood that violating the laws of nature caused unnecessary pain to the living.
Absolutely.
It's a wisdom that we in the modern world have largely forgotten, to our detriment. But I'm curious, how did Eagle teach the Indians to actually fly? I mean, surely he's not talking about literal physical flight.
He was talking about spiritual flight, the ability to transcend limitations and experience the boundless light of the Creator. He helped them to expand their consciousness and experience a deeper level of freedom.
So it's about freeing ourselves from the constraints of our limited ego mind.
Exactly. And he talked about creating places of power, not through physical manipulation, but through the power of his consciousness.
It's a reminder that our minds are incredibly powerful tools for shaping reality.
Right.
And that true power comes from within, not from external forces.
Absolutely.
Right.
Then he describes this dramatic initiation,
Okay.
where he opened the ground before his students
Oh, wow.
and rose from the fiery abyss as a shining divine eagle.
It's like a symbolic representation of the spiritual journey, the descent into the depths of the self, and the subsequent ascent to the heights of divine realization.
Exactly. It's a powerful image of transformation and rebirth.
And didn't he emphasize the importance of the heart center?
He did.
The Anahata chakra?
The Anahata chakra.
Right.
He said, every Anahata developed to the divine level is a hole leading into the depths of me, i.e. to the bottom of the depth of multidimensional space.
Wow. That's pretty profound. What does that even mean?
It's about opening our hearts to love, to compassion, to the interconnectedness of all things. It's about connecting to the source of all being through the heart.
It sounds like he's saying that the heart is the gateway to the divine.
He is. And he also emphasized the importance of surrender to the divine will.
Okay.
He said, you must submit yourself fully to the will of God and have absolute confidence in his power, which is present in you as well.
So it's about letting go of our ego's need to control and trusting in the wisdom of a higher power.
Exactly. And he reminds us that we can't achieve anything truly great without that surrender.
It's about aligning ourselves with the flow of life rather than resisting it.
Beautifully said.
Right.
And he ends with this incredible invitation, this beautiful imagery of the rising sun. The sky, the mountains, the depths of the ocean.
Right.
He says, give them the freedom. Give them at least the knowledge that there is the freedom, that it is possible.
Wow, that's powerful. What a beautiful way to sum up his teachings.
Yeah.
It's like he's reminding us that freedom is our birthright, that it's always available to us if we're
Yes.
willing to open ourselves to it.
He is. And he encourages us to develop the unbending will and unswerving intent of the warrior of spirit,
Yeah.
whose goal is to attain the highest freedom.
Yeah.
It's about dedicating ourselves fully to the spiritual path, to the pursuit of liberation.
It sounds like a challenging but incredibly rewarding journey.
It is.
Right.
And he offers us his help,
Okay.
his love, his guidance.
Yeah.
He says, I appoint the meeting at the dawn. I will teach you kindling the heavenly fire, the fire of love.
What a beautiful invitation.
Right.
It sounds like he's inviting us to embark on a journey of transformation,
Yeah,
to awaken to the divine within.
he is.
Yeah.
And his final words are simple but profound. I am waiting for you.
Okay, I think I need a moment to process all that.
Yeah,
We've met so many incredible figures,
we have.
each with their own unique perspective and wisdom to share.
Right.
It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it's a lot to take.
It's amazing how all of their stories like weave into this rich tapestry of Native American spirituality.
Uh-huh.
But it's not just stories,
No.
right? There are like some really powerful
Yeah,
practices and insights that, we can actually apply in our own lives,
absolutely.
regardless of background.
Yeah. What strikes me is how all these figures emphasize direct experience over blind faith or dogma. They weren't interested in telling people what to believe. They were more about encouraging people to discover their own truth,
Yeah.
their own unique connection to the divine.
It's like they're saying, don't just take our word for it. Go out and explore for yourself, see what resonates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They point us toward a path of heart, a path of courage, a path of relentless self-exploration. They challenge us to shed our limitations, to embrace the unknown,
Right.
to become the best versions of ourselves.
And they offer us like this glimpse
Yeah.
into a reality that's so much, bigger and more mysterious than we might imagine. A reality where we can access, deeper states of awareness, where we can connect with the divine, where we can even, transcend the limitations of our physical bodies.
Right. It's a reality that's available to all of us if we're willing to do the work, to walk the path, to open our hearts and minds to the infinite possibilities.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious, what resonated with you most from this exploration of Native American spirituality? Is there like a particular practice or insight that you feel drawn to explore further?
For me, it's the emphasis on cultivating a hunter's mindset, not in the sense of taking life,
Right.
but in the sense of approaching life with curiosity,
Yeah.
awareness,
Right.
and a deep respect for all beings. It's about seeing the world as a living teacher and being open to the lessons it offers.
That's beautiful. And it reminds me of something Don Juan said about how, God provides according to our impeccability.
Yeah.
It's about, aligning our actions with our highest principles
Yeah.
so that we can live in a way that honors both ourselves and the world around us.
Exactly. And it's not always easy. It takes courage, discipline,
Yeah.
and a willingness to face our own shadows. But the rewards are immeasurable.
Well said. I think that's a great place to leave our listeners, with that invitation to explore, to experiment, to push the boundaries of their own understanding. Who knows what incredible discoveries await them on the path of heart?
And remember, the freedom that these Native American teachers spoke of is not some distant goal, but something that's available to us right here, right now. It's in the stillness of our breath, in the beating of our hearts, in the vastness of the sky above. It's in the interconnectedness of all things, in the love that binds us together.
Beautifully said. So until next time, keep diving deep and may your journey be filled with wonder and transformation.